We're live.
Hello, and welcome back to the Lee Kent main event. Now we're going to go to my last range question, then we're going to go to some organised questions, so some audience questions even. So let's go to, what are your views on the strikes? We'll go from Chris this time.
Okay. So the strikes are definitely something I want to take a strong stance on. I believe Kent Union should be clear and vocal in its support of the UCU strikes. We should support the teachers who dedicate so much time and effort to us and our learning. Of course, I can understand, the difficulty this puts Kent Union in as a position, totally. But I think, unions protect the rights of workers. And as we are students who will enter the world of work after we graduate, it sets a very bad precedent, for Kent Union not to overtly support the UCU, that protects the rights of the very same workers that we will become. We need to set a norm of protecting workers' rights, of protecting students' rights. And I think you do that through supporting unions, and I think it needs a clear message. Of course, this does provide challenges for students, and we should support students during this strike period. But these two things are not mutually exclusive. You can support the strikes, you can voice your support for the teachers that mean so much to us, and also support the students in various ways. I mean, supporting the strikes is essentially, taking a stance on what these strikes stand for. And these strikes stand for equal working rights, equality, and well-being of these workers, in this case, teachers. And I think teachers strike for a reason, because of these poor conditions, the inequality in positions between demographics, poor contracts. And by supporting the strikes, we can put more pressure on the university to meet the needs of the UCU. And once these needs are met, the strikes will come to an end. So that is my stance. I believe Kent Union should take a clear stance in support of the strikes and in support of workers' and students' rights.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Let's try and keep all the answers around the same length as Chris's, just so we can get onto audience questions. They're very important, obviously. Let's go from Isabella now. What do you think about the strikes?
Fully support, just as Chris said. As someone who used to work as a tutor for a year and a half, I have done work experience in school camps in private schools, I understand just the amount of workload you have to do for just GCSE students. What a lecturer would have to do for a university student is immense. And if they're striking over bad pay, then you really need to just sit back and take a look at what their pay is and ask yourself again, if the Vice Chancellor is earning $277,000 a year, why can't he afford to take a pay cut and pay his staff more? I fully support the strikes.
Thank you for that. Let's go on to Zaid next.
Okay, so strikes is a very contested topic, and I want to kind of set some things straight. I'm a massive supporter of strikes. I believe that everyone has the right to strike for better working conditions, better pay, better pensions, which is what UCU are fighting for, which is the union that represents teaching staff all across the country, right? But not just teaching staff, also professional staff at the university. I think we need to kind of make it very clear that your own personal opinion does not matter when it comes to this, because the decision on the stance that Kent Union takes is made by Kent Union Parliament, which is the highest student decision-making body at this university. So it's not just your voice, it is the voice of all the students that are being represented at that make that decision. So I personally can vote one way, but if Kent Union Parliament votes not in support, it votes not in support, and you have to stand by that as an elected representative of students. Now, Kent Union Parliament, for these sets of strike action, voted not in support, and therefore that is what the stance the union took was, because we represent our student body, right? At the end of the day, you can support strikes individually, you can be there for them, but your responsibility is to your members who are your students, right? What they say goes. So you stand by that. They are affected so negatively by these strikes. The strikes are a dispute between UCU and universities, right? The students are just in the firing line. They're in the middle of it. They're the ones that take all that hits and they're the ones that have to deal with the consequences. So what are we doing to help them? I also want to set the scene in this as well, is that the issues around strikes this year are on a national level. No individual university has the power to be able to make that difference. The issue is nationally between UCU and the University College Employers Association, who set pay standards all across the country for university staff. It is also against USS, which is the National Pension Scheme. So these issues nationally are being discussed and being disputed at. That is why government has gotten involved into it, having those conversations. Nothing we do here right now will have that impact. All we can do is ensure that the students' education is mitigated for the strike action, and ensure that they're supported in terms of their well-being, in terms of their academic support, in terms of representation, and in terms of their engagement, and that they have the resources needed and provided by the union to be able to have a great university experience, regardless of the strikes. And that's where I want to really highlight to like all my fellow candidates as well, and to students. It isn't just up to you as an individual. You are representing the voice of 16,000 students here.
Thank you very much for that, Zaid. Monty, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, with the strike, it's listening to people and their responses, and just what people around campus have been saying. It's quite a, complex situation, because as a student who loves your teachers, you sympathize with them, but then as a student, it's inconveniencing your learning experience in general. And since this is, as I said, this is not a situation that the university can just step in and sweep it and fix it straight away, and it's all and done with. It's not as easy as that. I understand why the parliament took that decision, because it does inconvenience us, and it's something that is clearly out of our control. So yeah, with these set of strikes, and it's quite a complex situation, but coming from a student standpoint, it does inconvenience us. We've already had many problems with our learning experience for the past couple of years of being fully online, then integrating back into fully in person, and then now this. So it's quite an inconvenience. It's not desirable. So yeah, that is my opinion about it.
Thank you for that. Sage, I believe you're next.
Yeah, so I fully agree with Zed about your personal views sort of not being important when you run as Kent Union, but personally I am in support of the strikes. But my policies that I want to focus on are making sure that the mental health of our students is a priority, making sure that people know the pre-existing things that they have access to on campus, making sure that they know that they can be reimbursed for expenses as a result of the striking process, to hopefully, do what we can do as a union in response to the strikes, because we can't control if teachers are striking, and they have a right to strike, I personally believe. But we can do things like put those mental health services in place, make sure that students can talk to one another about how they are feeling and to Kent Union staff, and seek that advice that they need.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So let's move on to some audience questions coming directly from the University of Kent students. So our first one is, can each candidate state 3 campaign promises, no cliches, no maybes, but 3 concrete ideas that they will try and put into effect if they become KU president? So let's try and stick to 1, 2, 3 sentences if you can. Let's say 6 sentences at most each. Who wants to start? Any volunteers?
I'll start.
Yeah.
So, as I said before, I want to try and implement things that are low cost for the union, low cost for the university, to make sure that, because you're only in for 1 year, unless you go again and again, but the term is 1 year. Doing something in that time is difficult, so what I want to be doing is textbook swaps. You just need 1 room, you just need to advertise it, it's free. I want the clothing swaps, same principle, 1 room, advertise, it's free. And then the most important besides those for me would be the festival for students, to have something where they feel like there is something they can go to besides that, so there is something for their well-being, to relax and to unite both campuses.
That's excellent, thank you very much. Let's go from that side then, Zaid.
So my 3 clear points. Firstly, focusing on EDI and ensuring that students at Kent are included in everything that we do and have an equitable experience. Secondly, focusing on transparency and decision making, not just in the union, but also lobbying the university to do the same and being transparent with the students. And third, I want to make sure that we continue to fight for students in the cost of living crisis and ensure that they get the support that's needed, not just on a local level, but on a national level.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Monty, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. So three things. First one is the union officers. Union officers work for the students. So if they're in the office, I find that as a problem because they don't work for the office; they work for the students. So at least 2 times a week they should be out there with students. Next one is mental health support because that's a key thing that's going on right now. Mental health, we're gonna do something, new things, totally new, bring in a professional, and all the things we implement will be very new, never tried before. Second thing is spreading the message of why people come to university. So that will be the main campaign that we'll be doing as a union, spreading why people come to university and the importance of it.
Thank you very much for that, Sage.
Yeah, I'll keep it snappy and short. So the first one is improving the app, as I previously mentioned, making sure that our current policies are accessible to everybody and that everyone has access to that information. I would like to do some more events involving Medway and Canterbury, making use of the free shuttle bus we currently have access to, maybe full day events. I'm from Gravesend, the other side of Kent, so I'm a big fan of Kent culture. So integrating that into these events that we're doing, I think are phenomenal, making use of our local small businesses, I think would be completely benefit. And something that I'm really looking into is the idea of Campus Brunch Club being every weekday, so that students have access to that food, because I appreciate the work they've been doing, but what if you don't have access to brunch on a Thursday or a Friday?
Brilliant, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, so firstly, accessibility. I'd like to improve the university experiences, seminar styles, through discussion, things like this, of neurodivergent and disabled students, as well as the accessibility with regards to food to help students flourish and make the most of their educational experience. Secondly, inclusivity. I'd like to provide educational initiatives for societies and sports clubs about the needs of BAME people and LGBTQ plus people. And thirdly, I'd like to improve on the student democracy and empower students to use their own voice through the methods of, the means of Kent Union to promote their needs.
Excellent, thank you very much. So, my next question from the audience is going to be, how would you support your fellow officers? We've mentioned this already, but let's try and get some detail on that. Let's say Sage starts.
Yeah.
That's this one.
So personally, I would try, obviously, to make a collaborative environment. I'm a really big believer in, any idea is, well, not a good idea, but worth sharing because people can bounce off of those ideas. So making sure that there's a space that fellow officers and students can come and talk to each other and bounce ideas off each other is something that I think is essential. So just working closely with the officers and, the current student body to make sure that their ideas are heard.
Excellent. We'll go to Chris next.
Yeah, I think for me it's promoting, an environment of compassion and care. Your fellow officers are not only your colleagues, but your friends. They're there to create a better university at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. That's what we're all here for. And I think encouragement and compassion, I think, is the best way. And an understanding that, everyone's trying their best, I think.
Excellent, cool. Isabella, would you like to go?
For me, if a job is one that you love and one you want to go to and you wake up every day and you're excited to go, it means your job is a home away from home. With that said, your colleagues, they're not just your colleagues, they're your family, you're supposed to look after them. With my experience running teams for training in hospitality and training when I was station manager of CSR and social media manager, one of the main things I'd always do is I'd always check in. If you're not checking in with your staff, you're not doing your job properly. It doesn't matter if you're president of a student union and you're looking after students. As my mum always says, charity starts at home. If your office isn't in good shape, your union's not in good shape. You've got to look after your staff first and foremost.
Excellent. Zay, would you like to go?
I think it's important to highlight that obviously the team is a flat structure, even though you're president and you're the 4 VPs, it's a flat structure, so you're all at the same level technically, right? Your job is to ensure that the team is working as effectively and efficiently as possible, right? That is what the president does. And I'm very grateful that I have an amazing team this year that are really passionate about the issues that they want to be fighting for. Our responsibility to each other is to hold each other accountable, to ensure that we are doing the things that we promise we will do to support students and represent students. And that's where you have to then find those lines of like being friends, but also then ensuring that you're asking people, but like, so what's happening with this, right? Or what's happening with this project that you were thinking about? How can I support you in this? How can I, is it too much for you? How can I help? That's really important, because without that support and without that checking in, without that whole accountability, things will not get done, as we've seen in previous years. And yeah, that's, I think, the best way to go about working with the team.
Excellent. So I believe just Monty's left now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just bring what I usually do at the office. I'll just bring it back here. As much as it's compassion and care, it's also that we're here to grow and we're here to get things done. So it's holding people accountable on top of, being caring, compassion, accountable, and also challenging people. Having a healthy enough environment that when you challenge someone, it's not a personal attack. It's just so you can grow. We're here to grow. And then also making sure people do what they say they're going to do, because you're also here to build character. So character is, you say you're going to do something and then you do it. So making sure that people's characters are being built in that way. And then also, when you're challenging someone, it's also important that you're not just there to challenge them, but you're also there for them in trying times. So that, when someone's like, oh, he's challenging me, but you know what, he was there for me also when I was going through this. So that's also important. So it's that type of environment that you want to promote and implement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we're going to go to a question specifically for Isabella from the audience, but I'll give everyone a chance to have an answer if they want to. So Isabella has raised some interesting and important issues. How can she actually provide action in this position and with so many creative ideas?
So I think first off, the main issue, thank you first of all for your question, and I think the main issue you're probably thinking about, I could be wrong, would be the financial education week during Welcome Week, the sport membership and the festival. I'll get to the other bits in a second, but I'm going to tackle those ones first. In terms of the festival, I would look to be using my contacts from the Creative Arts Festival I currently work at. I did last year, I am again this year. The business partnerships I've had from my various work experience, and also most importantly getting societies involved, because there's so many different creative arts societies, sports societies. I'd want them all to be involved in helping give something to the festival, but I'd also want something to do with Canterbury and Medway itself, getting local businesses maybe donating something for raffles. So when I ran a charity event a few years ago, I had a local business donate 2 afternoon tea vouchers for a raffle. It's very small things like that, or it's just simple conversations, asking people for favours. You're helping them, they're helping you. You're building a better community, because when they're helping you do something for your students, those students are going to appreciate that and they're going to go to them. So that's what I'd do in terms of the festival. In terms of financial aid week, education week, I'd want extra lectures from finance lecturers themselves to come in during the Welcome Week, give maybe a 30-minute, 1-hour talk on the state of finance. Guest lecturers coming in, as I said before, PhD students, so they can get the work experience as well. It'd only be a few extra things to add into Welcome Week, so it's not going to be too expensive. Sport membership, I will admit that's something that it needs to be explored on how to lower those costs, because I haven't been able to have the ability to look into why they're costed that much, which is something I'd look into once I got the position. These are promises that I want to do these things. Not everything is going to be able to be done. I am fully confident that a festival is more than capable in my ability. The swaps, as I said before, I just need rooms, just need advertisement. And then in terms of career opportunities, all we need to do is we need to talk to more local businesses. We need to talk to areas around the local, so in terms of Kent, and when that works, we can start looking more nationally.
Brilliant. Does anyone else want to develop on how they provide more action for their plans and their creative ideas that they have?
I'll certainly go, yeah. So I'm trying to work on a demo of the app. I've been talking about. It's been a little bit difficult. I've had some technical difficulties. I spilled lemonade on my laptop last week, so give me a little bit of wiggle room. Hopefully the top of next week will be coming out. so people can give me some feedback, and also so you can see what I'm actually talking about, because I sit here and I talk about an app, but we all might be picturing something that's a little bit different in our heads, and you're not sure how practical it is, so sort of a rough mock-up. That will be fairly, I think, hopefully easy to do. We have an IT department, I believe, as part of the union, so getting those involved with some adjustments. And in regards to those events at Medway and at Canterbury that are kind of cross-campus, I feel like small businesses will be inclined to do those events, especially like food and drink, because, you know, they have a closed market of students. They can put on discounts. Obviously, then it will encourage you to buy more if they're discounted. And it'll give them more popularity. People will post about it. It'll give them the exposure, and obviously we'll pay them. But I mean, my mum is a small business owner, and I grew up in Kent. One of my favourite events is sort of down Cobham, so the other side of Kent. They do a thing called Munchies on the Meadow every year. It's food and drink. It's really wonderful. I'd like to recreate something like that. Kentish food and drink. So many people I've spoken to have never had Kentish cider, which is insane to me. It's really good. So things like that. So you can, you know, because you are here at University of Kent specifically, you can appreciate the kind of culture we have. You know, you've seen the cathedral. What kind of food and drink do we have here? You can explore that.
Amazing. So did anyone else want to chip in on that? Go on then, Zaid.
So a lot of the things that I've been working on this year were because of what students voted on, and then you come up with ideas when you get into the role. Your time gets taken up really easily by meetings because it's so bureaucratic here, right? But some of the things that I want to continue working on, have new ideas on, is firstly, we have Summer Ball, right? How do we get more student involvement in Summer Ball? How do we ensure that we're giving students a platform to be able to get their talent out there using those stages? Because that's something that is unique to Kent. We are one of the few universities that have like an end-of-year festival like that. I want to make sure that we continue on developing it, having more student input behind it, having more student involvement behind it. That's really important. Going on from that, I really think it's important to recognize that in these roles, you're not able to like kind of organize your own events. But what you need to be able to do is to provide support to the students and the student groups to host the events that they want to for their communities. You can't have one event for all because events for all don't exist. Everyone has different ideas, different kind of perceptions of what they want the university experience to be like, right? So if, let's say, things like the ACS have done Take Me Out, which was massively successful, right? POCAS has done the POCAS Showcase to highlight what their members wanted to see from them, and we've been able to support them in creating those, and I want to be able to provide more opportunities like that for student groups to develop events that they want to have, right? So even things like the amazing collaboration that we had today, it was organized by the Turkish Society, and it was a fundraiser football match, right, for the situation in Turkey and Syria currently. Massively well attended. They had such a good fundraising effort, but that was all led by them. I want Kent Union to be student-led, for students, by students, and that for that to happen, we as officer team need to be able to then support the students and give them the resources needed and signposting needed on where to go, who to speak to be able to organize these events, but also learn the skills in organizing these events so then they can actually use them in their life as well, or even after university. And then in terms of EDI, this is a big one for me. It's very difficult to solve EDI issues overnight. You can't do that, right? But what you can do is work with small steps by implementing firstly an EDI strategy that is union-wide and ensuring that everything that we do, we see things through an EDI lens. And what I mean by that is you're ensuring that everything has an equality impact assessment, right? Every event or any thing that you're doing is being seen that is accessible for all groups, whether it's people with accessibility needs, whether it's with people with neurodivergency, whether they have people from different backgrounds. Like, let's say if you're from a lower socioeconomic background, is there a cost attached to it? Will you be able to access that because there's a cost attached to it? Can we support you in finding the funding for that cost so you can access that event? Things like that. Those are really important to be ensuring that you're being as inclusive as possible and providing an equal and equitable opportunity for all students.
Thank you very much for that, Zaid. Did anyone else want to touch on that? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, quite simply, as a theme here, what a surprise, we're Kent Union, running for Kent Union presidents, I would be led by the students. I don't have my sort of background in grassroots bureaucracy. I have it in, grassroots student-led activism. That is my background, that's where I come from, that's what I do. And there's nothing more powerful than a collective voice. And I think, speaking to the students, establishing their needs, and as I've said before, promoting the student voice through empowerment to allow them, allow students to speak for themselves, and rather than having to go through, Kent Union is amazing for facilitating these things, but it would also be incredible alongside that, through the Change It platform, for example, allowing students to suggest their own ideas, separate from any initiatives that were set up by Kent Union. And I think this direct democracy will allow students to have a direct say in what they want Kent Union to do, and action will be taken based on that student voice.
Excellent. Last chance to chip in if anyone wants to. No, we're all good. Okay, brilliant. So we're going to move on to a question for Monty. Once again, I'll let anyone else chip in if they want to, if it's relevant. Other than saying how Monty wants to investigate change and saying it is needed, what will he provide other than just conducting research?
Well, other than just conducting research, I guess, okay, so what I'll bring in is, I come from the union's supposed to be student-led. So the students really come up with the ideas, they come up with the initiatives, and what I believe that you do in this type of position is, you polish it up and you make it professional, and then you help with implementation and giving the runway for the events to be happening. And in terms of, I think I get what you mean by research. I think, so what I meant by that is that the union does a lot of things right, and by research I mean in terms of the things where students aren't experts in, you bring in experts to consult on those things, on ideas that we can do, that we can implement to help students in a much better capacity. None of us here are therapists, for example, and if you want to implement activities which help with therapy, which help with anxiety, which help with depression, or programs which help with that, we're not in the position to do that. You bring in a therapist. In terms of job training, you don't do that. You bring in someone who's an expert in that. In terms of, maybe our costs are too high in terms of running different programs and things like that, you bring in someone who can do that. You're really just facilitating things. You're not really actually doing it. So that's what I meant by not necessarily doing research, but bringing in the right people to do the job and working together with the team.
Brilliant. I think that's a very Monty-specific question, so I'm going to move on to a question for Zaid now. What student mobilization have you done?
What student mobilization?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the big things that I'm really, really proud of, actually, before I even came into this role in my final year, I was vice president of UKC Respect to Know, right? And this was last year when spiking became a very prominent issue here, not just at Kent, but in the UK in general, right? It wasn't that spiking cases were massively increased. It was something that was there, but people started recognizing it more because we finally started going back out after the pandemic, right? And you could see it a lot more. The data was there, and now it was something that was on people's minds. And it was important because it was an important conversation that needed to be had a long time ago. And I'm really glad it happened then. Something that I'm really proud of is with the society and with Kent Dance, we were able to actually mobilize a march against spiking that got the university to listen and to really take it seriously, and the union itself, and implement some really amazing safety initiatives, like ensuring that all their staff at venue Woody's and are trained in Ask for Angela, have the knowledge available, that there were spiking test kits brought in, that there were real training on what spiking is and real awareness around what spiking is, because it's not just, someone dropping a pill into your drink. It can be as simple as putting an extra shot into your friend's drink. That can be considered spiking, because people don't understand that. It's a lot more common, and it's not okay. It's unacceptable. No one's night out should be ruined by someone else's actions. And that's where we really got involved, really mobilized as a group, and the march was amazing. I loved every minute of how amazing it was to see people come together and on a really important cause, and really fighting for something that I'm passionate about, that the group was passionate about, and something that really mattered at the time, and I think it still does. So I'm quite proud of that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Zaid. We're running short on time, so I'm going to move on to the closing statements from candidates. Who should we start from? Who haven't you heard from in a while? Let's go from Sage.
Yeah, my general closing statement is just, I value accessibility of information and transparency of information. I want to revolutionize our little app if you are just tuning in at the end. And, that the cost of living crisis is something I also really want to focus on. I really want to tackle that, and the mental health support for that is super important.
Let's go for Chris.
Yeah, sure. I value accessibility, inclusivity, and sustainability, as well as amplifying the voice of students through empowerment and student democracy. I've got the experience with grassroots activism and the mobilisation here at university as well. So if you value accessibility, inclusivity, sustainability and student democracy, I hope I have your vote.
Let's go from Isabella.
So, as I said earlier, I'm very passionate about my academic success, the career opportunities, financial support and the creative arts. And I want to go back to that question I had earlier and just state that on Monday, because it's such an interesting question, I'd like to take the weekend to actually fully research it properly. And I will be putting more information on how I plan to implement my ideas on Monday on my social media, which is on Instagram at Isaporetsis, which is ISAPORETSIS.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go for Zaid next.
Lovely. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I am very proud of the work that I've done this year, and I think it shows in everything that I do, and I really do have a passion and dedication to the students at Kent. I want to be able to make their experience as the best it can possibly be. I stand here to represent every single student, regardless of what their background is, their sexuality, gender, their race, their ethnicity, anything. I am here to represent students, and I stand by that. I stood by it last year. I stand by it now, and I'm hoping it's shown through. I want to be able to continue representing you, to continue ensuring that you have the best experience here by fighting for you at every step of the way. So if you find that ideal to re-elect me, and make sure to follow my Instagram, Z4KU President.
Brilliant. So Monty, do you want to be the final closing statement?
Yeah, sure. My priorities are your priorities. Your mental health, your events, your cost of living crisis, you're looking forward to the next thing, your hope, your dreams, and making sure that you're having the best experience you possibly can while being here. And those are my priorities because those are your priorities. And vote for Monty.
Thank you very much to all the candidates. You've heard a lot of fantastic speeches and answers to questions. And please remember to vote on the 8th and 9th of March at kentunion.co.uk/lead-Kent. And to make sure to make stuff happen. Let's make stuff happen.